Yeah. Hey, everyone. It is
Howdy.
Friday night. Sawmill Charlie is on along with his good old boy buddy, Bob.
Long time since I've been on a Friday night.
Everybody, hope everybody's having a good time tonight already. I know it's a full house in here tonight.
See a lot of people in there. 37 right now. That's good. Good stuff.
We got Roy and James and Vincent and we got Russell and Joey and
it's that time of year, Charlie, where we're getting ready to be back at it. For some of us are getting ready to get back into it.
I know one thing. I'm going to be out there this coming let's see, Sunday, at least maybe tomorrow afternoon, I'm not sure, and throw some sugar cakes in with a little bit of pollen powder added to them. And hey, DNN, Don, and Tom.
My wife decided to walk down the hallway when we started here, so let me close the door real quick.
All right. So
it's interesting. So YouTube, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but with YouTube, it's fun to do these chats. It really is. But you have been getting a taste of it lately, right? So you do Monday night with Bill. You come on mine a lot on Tuesday nights, and then you do it on Wednesday night or Thursday night, right? It's like it gets to a point where you just get tired a little bit, right? It just gets tired.
I've been backing off some, yeah.
And it's not that you don't want. Well, I mean, it gets to a point to where some nights you just want to watch a movie or something, and just do that, right? Because when you're an audience member, you have the opportunity to not watch or to watch it later. But when you're the content creator, if you don't do it, then nobody can watch it, right? So it gets to where it's almost like a part-time job. And when you got a bunch of stuff going on, it just gets to the point to where you can't do it all. And, I say that to say this because, there's some nights that I've been off. I've never been 100% not engaging, but I took some time off. So hopefully I'll be back on a consistent basis. And as long as, my job schedule, if I get one, conforms, that'll continue to be the case. So just to set people's minds at ease that I've always said that I was going to be live on Tuesday nights, and that's my intention. But sometimes real life plays a part, right? So, with this time of the year, when you get that wind down chance, like for Brad and those guys in Canada, it's wintertime. They're not really doing much with the bees, and we're not really doing much with our bees either, except for now it's starting to get to that time to where we start doing stuff. So hopefully we can start putting out more content and doing stuff like that. But it's interesting because a lot of the people in this chat are also in our chat on Tuesday nights, and in the Facebook community and whatnot. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own where people are starting to do things that are no life beekeeper driven, but not really no life beekeeper stuff that necessarily, right? It's not like something that's gone. It's not like they called up and said, "Hey, Charlie, we're going to do a Sawmill Charlie thing, this or that." And is it okay, right? It's just, oh, we did this and now you have to just deal with it. And that's kind of some things that's happening in the no life beekeeper community. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're doing this now, So it's kind of interesting, but we'll see how that all plays out here in the future, because a lot of the stuff I don't even find out about till after it's already happened, right? And it's like, oh, I didn't know we as a community were doing this, because not to pat myself on the back, but when we had like 5 and 6 and 7 and 10 people watching the stream, there was only one person that was calling their chat the No Life Beekeeper chat, and that was this guy right here.
Right. I
Right.
remember those.
So, I mean,
That was
I
about 5 months
appreciate
ago.
everybody. The community's great, but it's like, okay, maybe we need to look at, and at least talk to the guy and say, hey, this guy is the guy that started it. Maybe we should talk to him before we do things sometimes. At least let him know what we're doing. And, at least put his name on the webpage or something, or something. But just totally avoid it. It's kind of incredible. But yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, not to take away from the stream, how's your bees doing, Charlie?
Well, I think they need feed. They're really ramming it through the feed. I was in them early this week, and I have one of these see-through covers. I put 3 of them on here back when it was 40-some degrees a week or 2 ago. And I found it really cool and interesting. I went out there Tuesday or Wednesday evening at 4 o'clock. It was 15 degrees. I took the cover off, the insulated foam board off, and then the glass is there. And I could see on this one hive, it had a cluster about 1 foot in diameter, and they weren't just sitting there frozen like they were because it was so cold. They actually were moving around. And I really liked that a lot. And so I got into another one that I was putting that cover on, and I pulled up a center frame, which was empty, except for maybe in the corners of some honey. So there was a frame off to the left there, close to the sidewall. And I pulled it and put it over there in the center to give them, access to the feed. So,
that's kind of what I did last.
I'm concerned with the feed. I will be putting some sugar bricks on. I added some pollen powder in them, and I got them in the hot box downstairs, and they're still kind of soft to touch. They're not like a hard brick,
Right.
Which might be good. Maybe because of the pollen powder being in there. Maybe that's why they are kind of doughy, I'll say. And so I have to use a spatula or not a
spatula.
Yeah, cake turner or whatever, and maybe put them on the bars that way. And so I plan on doing that for sure on Sunday when it's about 44 degrees, something like that.
I think not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, or it might have been last Saturday, I put on a pollen patty. I put on one appy tablet and made sure that they had access to some liquid feed, real thick syrup. The syrup's really, really thick, like honey thick, So, and the ones that I got, if they made it through the snow, they'll be all right, I think. But you never know.
But so that's definitely my plan, to get some feed on them. I really didn't take time to lift them and all because it was cold. As far as, well, actually, when I put them on, it was 40, 43, 44 degrees. I just wanted to get in and out on 3 different hives. That's what I bought, 3 clear covers. And
they're just the flat sheet. They're not the dome looking one. They're just the flat.
It looks just like a regular inner cover. And anything, it's got a hole in the center, which I told the guy I didn't want that. And he said, oh, no problem. He didn't put the notch. It's the same one that Brian C. down in Missouri, Mississippi had, or
North Carolina, right?
No, Memphis. And it's got a hole in the middle, and he had a notch on the wooden notch. So the guy didn't put the wooden notch on, but to put the center hole. So it's just fine. I put the screening on it. I put a piece of duct tape across it. And then I put my little board that I had originally for the wooden ones on top of that. And it seems to be, keeping it closed. They're going to propolis it anyway. Well, so that's the main thing I'm going to do. You got to remember, February is.
I'd like to see a video on that, Charlie, if you're out there and you can, because I know with the cold and everything, you don't want to be monkeying around.
I'm going to try to make one Sunday with me feeding them with pollen patties or pollen. Actually, I'm going to put some pollen patties on them, and I'll put these sugar bricks that has some pollen powder in them. Because right now we've got, well, next Friday will be the 31st, and we'll be at February. And right now, I can pretty much guarantee you, your bees are probably starting to brood up, at least for my bees in my area.
Mine already are. Were before the snow.
Mine have been starting to brood up the last couple weeks, probably. So Maple comes in around here in March. So I want to put patties on now, at least by the 1st of February, so they can feed the brood and all that before the natural pollen hits. So that's my game plan. As far as those clear inner covers, some people said, oh, they're going to dirty them up and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to have them on in the summertime.
Right. So they shouldn't be building any waxers on them. Right. Maybe some propolis, but
I'll use them in the wintertime. It's a great opportunity where I've got 1.5 inch piece of styrofoam insulation on top. I've got my inner or telly cover on top of that. All I got to do is take that inner cover or the insulation off, just look through the glass, and I can see what's happening.
Right.
And then put the insulation on without opening them up. And I keep it as a condensing hive where I have no upper entrance, no ventilation in the top. I keep that heat dome going, like Brian down there in Memphis. On his, you could see the moisture content around the edges of that inner cover through the glass, where they're not getting rained down. It's basically going to what Bill Heschbeck, who had made the reason I put all this on this year, finally got somebody like Bill Heschbeck who actually put a presentation on that. I actually got to talk to the guy at the Maryland State Beekeepers Association, and we discussed, what I would do. He had ones where he had insulated hives or he insulated the sides of the hives, but he said what I was going to do would work fine, just fine. So it has been. I popped a couple covers on some nukes where the bees are down really low, and some of mine are like double deeps with a medium on top and with mostly feed. And I was checking that inner cover to make sure that they got insulation. They got the hole covered up with a piece of wood. It's a wooden inner cover, but there's no moisture. I don't see any moisture on the inner cover. I don't see any mold on the inner cover. I don't see any moisture on top of the frames. So to me, I can see it's doing what everybody on the science community said it would do. So it's working out fine for me.
Well, that's good. Good stuff.
So, like I say, I try not to get them. I don't want them to starve. And
yeah, it's that time of the year at least for me, right? When it starts warming up, that's when you got to start worrying about them just running out of food. So,
I think because of all this cold weather, I think they're consuming a little bit more this year than they did in the past. Usually I would go out there and I'd be about this time of year and everybody is worrying about feeding fondant and all this other stuff. And I'd go out there and I'd have frames of capped honey still in the hives. So I'm hoping that's another thing I want to do. I had a crash this spring where I had half of my production hives go down on me, along with the rest of it where they had old queens. And I requeened everybody. I resupplied the other hives with, another hive of bees. And kind of pulled a rabbit out of my hat where I got 1,000 pounds of honey out of them and that kind of stuff. And I was going to go with that. Oh, because I had brought some nukes in, and of course they're coming in deeps. I wasn't going to take the time to transition them from a deep nuke to mediums, which I like to run medium frames.
Right.
So I put them in. I had enough deep boxes that I've got 5 hives out there right now that are double deeps. And
well, last year you said you were going to transition to deeps, and you only halfway got that done then.
yeah, I didn't transition the 5 nukes that I got in to replace everything. So I got a hive out there right now. It's got one of them covers on there. I'm curious. I did pick up, remember I was telling you, I picked up that honey frame and I looked down, and it didn't look like to me there was any bees in the bottom box, in that bottom deep. So what I'd like to do is go out there, and I'm going to take some of I got some tape, some not masking tape. What do you call it? Duct tape. But it's cheap duct tape. It's that duct tape that nobody uses anymore because they all went to Gorilla Tape because that's the one that's got the real glue on it.
Right.
And this stuff is real. It's almost like painter's tape. It's silver looking, but it's like really easy to pull off. So I figured, well, I'm going to pull that top box and raise it up from the rear end and look down into that bottom box. And if I don't see anything, except for maybe a handful of bees on some frames, I'm going to take that top box off, pull that bottom box out of the mix, put that deep box on the bottom board, and go ahead with my sugar cakes and pollen patties. And if there's any bees in the other box, I'll just shake them in on top and get that out of there. Because what I want to do is transition them this year, where when it gets warmer and things are building up and whatever, I'm going to go ahead and drop a couple medium brood boxes on top of that and let them migrate up.
So are you moving back to all mediums, or are you going to still try?
Yeah, I'm going to move back to all mediums.
Well, you got used to doing it that way, and it worked for you. So
the biggest thing I got out there, and everybody knows I got a hive lifting machine, and that's a really great back saver. And I was out there, I'm going to say September, and I was removing, I'm going to say Formic Pro strips. And I had a terrible time trying to bust him, not lift the boxes with the machine, but take my hive tool and try to crack the boxes apart. And it was all I could do with a couple hive tools and breaking them apart and trying to lift, because that top box did have a fair amount of honey that the bees had put in there, not before I've ever started feeding. Right. And finally got it broke apart, and then got my hive lifter on there. And then there was a few times there where the 2 frames were stuck together, and I had to kind of shove a hive tool through there to cut that apart. And I finally got it apart and all that. And where the previous boxes that I were working with, it was 3 mediums. The top medium was full of honey. And the hive lifter, I broke the box apart, which was relatively easy because it's a smaller box and not so much weight, even though it was full of honey. It's less per box compared to a deep. And everybody says, a deep won't weigh 100 pounds. Well, it sure does feel like it. I can tell you that much. And so
pretty close if it's not.
Yeah. So I raised up them medium boxes when I would get in there and, take off the Formic Pro strips. And I said to myself, it's just so much easier to work with 3 mediums than it is 2 deeps. And that's I reassured myself why I switched from deeps to mediums. That's what it amounted to. I reassured myself.
Yeah, Brian at Flower Street asked me if I'd been to my out yard. I haven't. I was going to. Then it snowed, right out of nowhere. It was cold, but it snowed, and then I still have snow on the ground right now as we speak, which is very unusual for it to stay here more than a day, and it's just been cold. So like it's below freezing right now outside, So it's supposed to warm up tomorrow and Sunday. Hopefully, if the weather's not all cloudy and nasty, I'll ride out there on Sunday. Maybe I'll do a little video out there. And
yeah, right now it's 23 degrees, which that's pretty good right now.
I'm not expecting any bees out there anymore. I just because of the snow, and I know the feed they were probably low on, and just the only one I really have hope for is a double nuke that I had out there that never had honey pulled from it or anything like that. That probably had a fair shot, right? The other ones maybe not. The only thing they've ever gotten is an appy tablet out there, and so we'll see. That's not enough food to make it through the winter, so they would have had to do it on their own. I'm hoping, but it's not looking too good here. I'm probably at 10, maybe a little bit less than 10 right now with the weather the way it's been. So it's going to be a big chore to get things back up and going this year without putting money into it, because I don't have the money to sink into it right now. Maybe as the season comes, February is usually a pretty good swarm lure month, which would put an influx, a little bit of cash in the bank to allow me to do some things. But until that stuff happens, yeah, I'm struggling right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying there.
It's
I don't know. I got
definitely a challenge. And
like so far, so as far as coldness, or everybody talks about the snow, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, or the cold or whatever. I do get concerned when it's down to about 8 or 9 degrees or something like that.
Well, for me, it's not that it gets cold. It's that it gets cold and then warm and then back cold again and warm. And it's just constantly cycling. And this time it's been cold for about a week and snow, and, they're just in there. So we'll see how it's going to play out. I mean, obviously I live in South Carolina. Snow and stuff is not a normal thing for us. So it's, it's going to have to be. If I,
you're going to start catching some swarms.
I do. I take a lot of swarm calls to go shake them off of people's trees and bushes and houses and stuff like that. But, maybe I have time to go put some traps out this year. We'll see how it goes. But at any rate, I mean, we're talking a month. In a month, things will be popping off for me. So we'll be going hard at it, whatever that looks like is going to be what we got to go with, And
right. I mean, like I say, my main thing is get out there and throw the pollen patties to them and the feed, make sure they don't starve.
That's it. Just trying to keep what you got right now to make it to that time, right?
Right. And then, like I say, I'm gonna look into them double deeps, and if I can pull a box out from underneath of them, I know it's cold, but actually they're saying for the next 4 days it's going to be between 45 and 50 degrees, so the bees are going to be flying.
Well, last time I went out, and I'm looking at Brian talking to Keith there about when his bees start brooding up. Mine actually had a frame to 2 frames of brood in them when I was in them 2 weeks ago, right? Or a week and a half ago. They were already brooding up. So, of course, that's all for naught now, right? With the snow. So
maybe.
We'll see how that goes. One of my colonies, I did see a bunch of dead bees on the bottom, but when I walked through there today, I did see a bee fly out. So I don't know if it's a robber bee or if it's a bee that's in there and it's just too cold for him to clean that off yet, because there wasn't that many bees flying, 1 or 2 maybe. So,
I don't know. They always said around here about mid-January is when the queen will start to lay some. And I've been in there, I'll say about this time, but maybe not quite as cold. And I had a circle of cat brood about 2 inches in diameter, maybe 2.5. And on that day, I also found it was rimmed with eggs on the outside. The main thing of it is, if you got a big cluster, as I call it, if you got bee power, the power for those worker bees to cover that brood up and to keep that brood warm, she'll lay that much eggs. And
well, hopefully she knows what she's doing more than I do.
I think so.
So, you know, let the bees do their thing. You know, they're gonna do what they can. So hopefully they make it another few weeks. That's what we need for them to start getting some pollen, stuff like that coming in naturally.
And all that. They're talking about drift watch. We have that here in Maryland. A map where you locate your bees so they know when it's where they don't spray. But so that's where we're at. It was warm enough today where I actually scraped off. I left snow on the driveway parking area next to the house because it was easier and safer to walk on the snow.
Right.
And we scraped the rest of the areas out, but it had, you know, how you scrape it makes the snow turn into like an ice pack. And so I did some salting and stuff yesterday and kept the main roadways clean. They were melting yesterday in the middle of the day. And by the evening at 4:30, what melted was starting to refreeze. Like today, I tried to open up 2 big doors. This guy wanted lumber, and the doors were, the water had dripped and locked the doors up with ice. So I said, that's it. You have to carry it out the other door because we just can't open these things up.
So Jeremy changed his site name from Queen Bees to Granado Honey.
Okay. Out in Texas.
Out in Texas.
And so I scraped next to the house here with the tractor this afternoon. And then I ran and spread salt with the salt spreader. And now it's nice and clean. So it was warm enough to do that. It was, I'll say, over about 33 degrees, something like that.
You going to drop the link?
Oh, I forgot about that.
You got Bruce's Bees in the chat. For all these guys on my stream.
There we are. All right, the link is pinned in.
Pinned in. If you're sitting back, ding, ding. It's open. But yeah, so, you know, just going to continue to do. Yeah, we still got some snow on the ground, Bruce. You probably do too. You know, I've got to get out to the out yard. So that's the next thing.
Here's my
Tom and Bill. Hey, guys.
Bob, long time no see.
Hey, Bob, Charlie.
I know. I don't see you on Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights are my rest night, getting ready for my work week.
Well, you guys have been holding it down with Charlie, so I was like, I'll just watch and listen.
Yeah.
So, good to see you guys. You got snow up there with you, Bill?
It's starting to go away.
Yeah,
we in the high 30s here today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week this week is supposed to be in the 40s, and next week's supposed to be in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, we're about 10 degrees higher than you. It was in the 40s today, and it's supposed to get in the 50s and 60s over the weekend, and then by the middle of next week, it's supposed to be 65-ish as a high. But we still got some snows lingering around on the ground. No, Tom, I got to ask Tom. Tom's still covered, probably.
Yeah, we got maple trees preparing to bud.
There's still snow everywhere.
You got your red maples are getting ready to pop up there?
Yeah, that little green pod that starts out on the branches where the leaves are at.
Yep.
It starts turning green. It's a hard pod. And then in about 2 to 3 weeks, that bud will pop right out from under it.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Rick Sutton. Hey, Rick. Hopefully everything's good. I don't know whether you're down below the snow point in Florida or not with your bees. And
Brad's in there.
yeah, hey Brad. Good to
Brad
see
said,
you.
no snow here. Bees in full flight. Yeah, okay.
Where's I'm just kind of getting lost on my cursor here.
You know, I still have a lot of that beeswax left that I bought when I was up there. Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
I need to get with some of these guys about those candle molds and stuff. See if it is, well, you know, a lot of the guys that do the candles do markets and stuff. So I don't know how they would do out on my table, but they might do okay. I need to see what they're doing. Let's see.
Who was 21st Bees?
I don't know. A lot of people I don't recognize, but I'm glad they're here.
Yeah, now
God
you know
House,
who
I
you are, Bob.
don't remember them. At least I may not know their YouTube name, right? I probably know who they are, though.
Yeah. 21st Bees. Let me know who you are. I know you're out in Arkansas. But
I talked to him at Nabby, but I forgot their names.
unless that's what's her name? So anyway, you know, Bill, you were talking about them buds, and I mean, I haven't went up and looked at the trees at the house up on top of the hill, but I did see sort of a red, you know, tint to them. I don't know whether they're starting to bud or what.
I mean, the branches at the tops of the trees are starting to darken up.
Yeah, there's like a coloration to them. I don't know whether it's just me look at them or not.
South of you guys.
And the only
I'm
reason
south of you guys, and I still got 3 to 5 inches of snow.
The only reason I was paying attention to it was I was out scouting a turkey spot.
The only thing else, yesterday I did get a freight truck came in with a license. What is it? A pollen dryer or something. The friend that Blake, who I used to mentor, ordered that. He was talking about that back when I was at Nobby.
A pollen dryer.
Yeah, hey. I asked Father called today. I said, yeah, it came in yesterday. He said they're going to use it to decrystallize honey. I said, well, all you got to do is get a darn refrigerator and a light bulb. I don't know what he's got. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm not sure. I thought it was actually on Captain Tank.
That Phil's talking about that.
That's that light bulb, Charlie. Those are hard to get now.
Philip's talking about that auto uncapper. I really like the new Lyson auto uncapper because not only does it have the steam blades, but it's got kind of that Simple Harmony Farms, you know, that thing that they do that everybody was liking a couple years ago.
The slicers.
Yeah. So after it goes through that cutter, it goes through a series of those discs that spread apart as the frame comes down through.
Yeah.
And that hypothetically stops you from having to, you know, pick any cells. Yeah, the secondary roller cutter. That's really intriguing to me.
And I would say, just like you said, hypothetically.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's always mine. I've got the uncapper, which I like my uncapper, but I still find myself picking cells at some spots, you know, so it's I don't have the automatic one. I got the semi-automatic that I have to roll through there. 3-round burst, right? And then go and pick them, you know.
You know, a 1/2-inch drill will fit that thing where that handle's at.
Well, the thing is, I've looked at it. I've thought about putting a sprocket on there and putting a motor on it.
Yeah.
But it's got that what do you call those pins that it's like a semicircle?
Half
You have
moon
to,
key.
what's it called?
Half moon key.
Okay, so that thing, right? And you got to tap
Yeah.
it out. And I'm worried that when I'm trying to tap it out, that I'm going to damage it. And then if I damage it, the handle won't go back on. And then it's out of warranty and I'm screwed all the way around. So that's the only reason why I didn't do it when I first got it. But other than that, I mean, I'm only one guy. I can only do one thing at a time anyway. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, if I had multiple
Man,
people there doing things, it'd be easier. But we do what we can. Do what we can for sure.
So, Tom, what are they talking about your knee or whatever it was? You
He
got
had
it.
knee replacement surgery.
I was carrying 2 bags of 25-pound bag of sugar yesterday afternoon, and I'm going down a flight of steps down to the basement to store it because it's too cold in the barn right now. I don't want to put it in the barn. And
Well, just put it next. Just put it next to the
my
thumper.
knee
in the
didn't
stall.
like it.
Huh? Your knee didn't like it? Yeah. Well.
No,
Do you feel it in your knee when it gets cold outside?
no, not really.
Seems like every time the weather changes and it gets cold, and Bill's a veteran, he might be able to relate to this.
My body
You get
does.
cold and all of a
No more
sudden,
than my
oh,
knee.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
That stuff don't work like it used to work.
No, it doesn't.
Well, Tom, next time just leave it next to the copper kettle and it'll be all right.
Yeah, you won't have to do anything with it. Except pour it in the kettle.
Well, I wanted to make some higher proof stuff, Bob and Charlie. That's what I needed the
Well,
sugar
you know.
for.
When it goes from there over to the thumper, and and the coil and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I should never, hey, Gary, I should never have an issue with that. Nobody gets more bee sting therapy than me in my bee yard. I guarantee. And maybe some of those guys in Texas with the really mean bees, mine are probably one step under that. They will go back inside, the ones that don't attack me.
You
Well,
hope.
I've gotten 2 stings so far this year.
Yeah, when I went out there, they were not happy that I was intruding on their space in the middle of winter, for sure.
Yeah, when I fed them a couple weeks ago, I got 2 stings in the hands. I wasn't wearing gloves. I don't
I
wear.
might get one of
I
those
just been
things. What do you
tearing
call
them
them?
down.
A smoker, Charlie? Is that what it's called? I might try using that this year.
smoker.
A smoker, yeah.
Okay.
How you doing,
Hey.
Joe?
It's me,
Very
Joe.
well. How about y'all?
Hey, Joe.
Hey,
Hey, you
like
got
your background picture there.
It looks cold, don't
What are you doing in Canada?
it?
You still have any snow on the ground?
Just in the shady spots.
I've still got some, a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. I still have to walk
What
on
did
it
you
to go
do?
get my mail.
What did you do, Joey? Take and migrate to Manitoba?
Yeah, looks like it, don't it?
I think you went the opposite
it does.
direction. You want to go south.
I took the wrong left.
Joey goes any further south, he's in the Gulf of America.
Yep, pretty much.
I
All
seen.
that's gone now.
I seen. I don't know. Somebody they were talking about the ice someplace around. Was it around Biloxi or whatever it was? A lot of ice and the interstates were all choked up for 15 hours.
I don't know. I know that was happening here on the snow day.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They were down there around Biloxi or someplace.
It
And
snowed
the
bad in Biloxi, too.
The traffic just come to stop standstill, and they actually stayed in their cars for like as much as 15 hours, 12 to 15 hours.
so tonight. So 9 months from now, there's going to be a baby boom down
Probably.
south.
Probably so. You're probably right.
So y'all know what salt is, Joey?
No, they don't use salt down here. Very little.
Sand, right?
They'll put sand on our bridges because our bridges are actually freeze in the low 30s. They'll freeze up if the humidity's high. But other than that, they can't do much. We don't have any kind of snow equipment or ice equipment, actually.
Yeah, we don't either.
I
Maybe it is clay. I'm not sure.
I got on the road the next day, and it would be patches, and all the some spots would be just as dry as they could be, and all of a sudden you'd run in about a quarter mile of icy black ice. If you wasn't careful, you'd start slipping and sliding. I was in 4-wheel drive the whole time, and where my driveway hits the highway. If you're driving on the highway, it's okay because it's got a turn like this. But when you're stopping and trying to turn in my driveway, you'd fishtail every time trying to turn in my driveway with that black ice.
Yeah. Don't everybody talk at once. It's only a live stream.
Yeah.
So,
Video chat.
so
I'm
Joey,
still
do they have
alive.
right-hand turns down there or just
Thanks.
left-hand turns?
What's that?
Do they have right-hand turns down there or just left-hand turns?
They got a little of both.
I saw a meme of Atlanta salt truck. It had two guys sitting on the back of a pickup truck scooping salt and
Yeah, scooping out a 50-pound bag and throwing
Yeah.
it in the street.
checking it down.
Just go down to the Gulf. You got plenty of salt right there.
Yeah,
Just
it's all in the
couple
water.
Scoops, buckets, pour it on.
Yeah, they got brine already made up down there. I mean,
Well,
could draft it out of the sea and throw it on the road.
it's like them California guys out there. They're all along the water there. They got no water there to put the fire out.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're afraid well, the problem is the reason they're doing that out there is because they don't know how to draft with a pumper.
I was thinking about that. I bet you they don't even have any hard suction.
If they do, they don't know how to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're worried about, well, if you put salt water through the thing, as long as you flush it out after you're done, I guess you'd be all right.
There you go. Run a tank of clear water through it, and it'll be flushed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug, it is terrible on the vehicles, but that's the way it is.
I'd rather have a little bit of salt on the vehicle versus having a burnt up vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. I did
Bruce-
a pump class in Washington D.C. one time, Charlie,
Yeah.
and the guy was done with the pump class, and I walked over to the guy that was teaching it. I said, "Aren't you going to show us how to draft?" He said, "We don't draft water in the city, son." He said, "That's only in the country." He said, "We don't even have primer pumps on these pumpers up here."
Bruce said he's doing splits in 3 weeks. Is that when y'all do splits down there, Joey? Valentine's Day ish?
I start doing my splits around the 1st of March.
Yeah, so 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that in the past here and gotten burned by cold weather right after the split. So last year I waited a little bit longer. So we'll see how it goes. First, I got to have bees to split. That's the main thing, right? Make sure I've got some bees left to split, and then move from there. See what happens.
So, Bob, do y'all get false springs down there?
Absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yep. That's the
It'll
worst
be
thing in the
70.
world, too.
It'll be 70-something degrees, bees flying. You'll say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do my split, and then Saturday it snows. Then by Wednesday it's 75 again, and then Saturday it snows. It's like, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah,
That's
we'll get
typical
that.
for here in the valley too.
Yeah, we'll get that flow going here in Louisiana. It'll get them building up real quick, and then it's just like for a week or two, everything goes away. It just stops.
Yep.
And then here they are with all this brood and nothing to feed them.
Yep.
If you're not careful, you'll lose a lot of bees too.
Yep. Yeah, we went through 3 years ago, we had 4 different springs here in the valley. Last year it was 2, maybe 3, because right after the third one, it took off and stayed. But it happens here every year.
That
So-
same year, Bill, we had a freeze at the last week of May. And
Yep.
we've never had a freeze after like May 12th. So set a new record for the Southwest Ohio, the latest freeze ever.
Mm.
And then on June, the last day of June, my brother had a swim party and he only got up to 60 degrees.
Yeah, I don't do splits here until after 1st of April.
Yeah, that's when I do them, about 1st of April.
Yeah, I got burned 1 year too with doing splits too early.
Well, that becomes the issue, right? It's like when I started becoming beekeeping, the state beekeeping association was like, oh, we all do our splits on Valentine's Day around the second week in February. So, okay, cool. That's when I'm supposed to do them. You do them. Oh, not this year. Not this year. Every other year we did it, but not this year. This year was bad.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Bill,
how my luck
I
runs.
plan to
So.
graft about the 2nd or 3rd or 4th of April. Be my first small graft.
How many you usually do your first round?
About 15 to 20.
Just like one frame, maybe?
Yeah, just because I know the bees aren't quite ready to make cells.
Yeah.
And then the next one will be 30. 2 weeks later. A week
My
later.
thing has always been when I do the splits is timing the colony I'm splitting, right? It's like taking enough resources for a split, but not too many to hold back the mother colony they're coming from. Because if in fact they die like they have in the past, well, now you're waiting for that mother colony to now grow back up to the point to where you can actually split them again, right?
I was always told, Bob, 33%.
Take a third of it.
Take a third of it. You will not even you won't slow down any of your honey production.
Well, not at this point, right? Because if you have the drawn comb and everything, but when you're new and you don't have that, and you're dropping back in frames of foundation for that comb, now they have to build that comb before she has enough room, and it's just a whole thing, right? But now, hey, I got plenty of comb at the moment. Colonies donated a bunch to me over the winter. Bunch of extra.
I got plenty now after all these years.
Now you're talking about making queen cells, and let's say you're doing 1 bar with 15 instead of 30. Is that because you don't have the bee population, or just the atmosphere heat?
It's all the bees need to practice that first round when you're doing it that early in April. If I wait to the 3rd week of April, I could do a full 30. But if I want to do it just at the beginning of swarm season, they won't. I could put 30 cells in there, plenty of bees, and they'll only make 15.
Is that because they're not in the swarm mode?
They're not quite in that swarm cell making mood. Yeah.
Yeah, I
ran into that a couple of years ago. So I talked to my friend that's a 3rd generation beekeeper, and he goes, Tom, you're exactly right. That's what happens when you graft semi early, or at the very beginning of swarm season.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy that runs my queen yard tonight, and he's going to drop the first run 85 cells sometime around the 20th of April.
Yeah, if I think I waited to the 20th of April, I'd go ahead and do my full set. But that
At least
first
that's
week
the
in
plan
April,
right now. So.
By then, swarm season's in. By the middle of the 3rd week of April, I'm getting calls. 1st of April, one or 2 calls at most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that Lloyd up here, who he would say always somewhere's around the 15th of April. Well, no, that there another club up the road. That's what it was. They said
Yeah,
they would
Mark-
always, they wanted everything up and running in a cell builder at the 15th. But I always found, it'd be 70 degrees or 65 degrees during the day, and then it would drop into the 40s at night, or maybe 38, 39 if it was really cold. And then that was the end of those cells because they got chilled.
Yeah.
But
But we're going to put cell builders together the first Saturday in April.
Yeah, Mark Miller says his first round always sucks too.
Yeah.
So if you're starting the grafting, let's say you said the 28th or so, what'd you say?
No, we're going to round the 20th.
20th.
Yeah.
So when do you quit raising queens? July?
The last drop goes in usually between the 15th and 20th of August.
Of August.
Yeah.
That
And
late.
those are bred controlled. We don't let them go out to the DCA.
How you mean they're artificially inseminated or
No.
what?
We breed them in our controlled netting.
Oh, the netting thing.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have that, what would you say? July?
The last drop would be probably the 30th of July.
Because I've heard by that time your drone population is diminishing and all that.
Yes and no.
Maybe
We've talked
by the
about
end of
drone
August.
population through the winter. So
Right.
Yeah, end of July is about my latest that I'll make splits and grafts just because I need that rest of those months to grow the hive enough to make it through winter.
Well, this year I put in drone frames, at least one in each production hive. And before it really got cold, I was seeing drones coming in and going out. I mean, they weren't being kicked out.
I've tried those things 4 years in a row and can't get them drawn out, even with fresh wax on them.
yeah,
Really?
Get them to draw them out.
I had to wax mine. Now they wouldn't, if you had them right from the store, put them in, forget it. I had to really wax the heck out of them to get them to draw.
spray a little sugar water on them, Bob.
I'll try that this spring. I got to re-wax a bunch of frames here in the next little bit too. I got a lot to do. I got to make swarm lure to send out and a bunch of stuff. Wax frames, organize my frames, get them ready to go. It's going to be coming on quick.
It won't be
I've
long.
been waxing
It's gonna
frames
be here
the past
before we
couple
know it.
weeks.
What'd you say, Tom?
I've been waxing frames the past week or two.
I've got plenty of wax.
I'm ready.
Got to get out there and do it.
I think I'm more prepared this year than I've ever been. Knock on wood.
I always think
Is
I'm
that way.
prepared, and then I'm not. Then I'm not when it comes around to it. It's like, oh, I could have done this.
We're all that way, Bob.
Yeah.
We're all too busy for what we can do.
And then if you do get something done, you end up putting something else on the list, right? It's just like it just stays full.
Yep. The calendar is full from March 15th all the way up through November 15th.
Trying to keep up
He
with the
wants
chat.
to know if I'm going to get 50 swarms this year. I don't think so.
No.
Maybe 20, 25, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mr. Travis got 55 off with the rustler last year. And you had how many, Tom? You had like 30 something, right?
Yeah, I forget how many. 32, 33? I don't know. I lost track.
It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a pretty active year last year. I just hope this year is not as active.
I don't think it will be, Bill. I think with all this cold weather we had and all the snow, I think there's going to be a lot of dead hives from the beekeepers.
I know I've got at least 2 dead outs.
I got a couple of my smaller ones did. So I got a
That's what-
feeling there won't be as many swarms. If they are, they're going to be later swarms.
Yeah, these were wooden hives that died out because of the cold, over that cold snap.
Yeah. My 5-frame nuke that was like 2.5 frames of bees. They didn't starve to death, they froze to death.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't know how to overwinter in horizontal hives because I can't put insulation on top of them. So I got to find a better way to overwinter in my horizontals.
Got
Are
to
they
tighten
top
them up.
bar or are they top bar or Land's hive?
They're Langstroths. One's Ricky's horizontal hive.
Is it
Or
solid
those-
bottom?
What'd you say, Joey?
No,
I asked Tom if it was a solid bottom.
it's a solid bottom.
Aren't those hives insulated
On Ricky's, no.
or not?
I mean, no, they're not insulated.
About all you can do is tighten them up with the following board
Yeah.
in the fall. That's about all you can do.
Right.
How much
I'm gonna
space you
see
got
if-
above the lid on there?
There you go, Bob.
Well, I got a lid on them, but it's got a
Sure, yeah.
hinge, so I can't put like a shim on them or anything.
What I was going to say is if it closes you've seen the Land's hives that close, they look like coffins, right?
Right.
They're 6 inches above the top of those frames.
Right.
So if you've
I
got
could
some space
insulate
above
all
it,
but
you
where the
could
hinge
lay
is.
you could lay insulation on top of it.
Yeah. That's what I'm gonna do next year.
I know the
Get-
one gal, her husband built her a long lang, like Ricky's, or like a normal, just a square box. But he put in, I don't know, it's like a 2-inch styrofoam insulation around, inside, in between the sidewalls. And I think she might have insulation up in the roof line too. And all
Yeah,
that.
because the Land's hives that I've got from Bearsville Bees, I'd say the box itself is probably 2 to 2.5 inches thick because it's got wood on the inside, insulation, and wood on the outside.
Right.
And then the lid's got insulation in it too. So
I think next year I'm gonna put four hives, 4 or 5 framers in it, but not on the ends. And then put insulation on the ends, and then buy some of that R30 wall insulation and lay that inside the lid. Then only the 2 ends and the bottom wouldn't be insulated.
you could always insulate the ends and the bottom. Just put the foam insulation on the outside and wrap it.
Yeah, I'd have to wrap it, then cut little
Anything
holes for the
whole.
entrance.
And then take your foam and cut the entrance out in the foam.
Right. So I'm gonna try that this year. I'm still learning how to use those horizontal hives.
Yeah. I got a Land's hive I got to figure out.
Yeah.
What's that, but Bill? Lands. Isn't that the same thing?
No, it's kind of it. If you took 2 mediums and stood them on end side by side, 2 medium frames,
Yeah.
that's the size of a Land's frame.
Yeah.
You mean stacked or?
No, side by side, like this. And there's probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch gap between the 2 pieces of medium foundation in the frame.
Now, is that the one that's like a window where you slide it in this way? They have
No, that's an AZ hive.
AZ.
That you're talking about. But I've got those big hives I had there in the store when you came down there. Those are Land's hives.
Yeah. I don't remember those.
So that's a video I've got to put
That's
out
the
this
deep
spring when I
frames.
set that thing up. It's a 25 frame Land's hive.
Mm-hmm.
And you're only supposed to start it with like 5 to 7 frames, is what I've been told. So I don't know. I got to do some more research.
I don't know. All that different. I mean, I know Joey, you got what, like Ricky's done. Did you have a horizontal?
Yeah.
hive?
I've got the I call them long langs. They're a horizontal Langstroth hives.
Yep.
So what's the advantage, Joey? Anything?
Well, the advantage is you don't have to lift boxes ever. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, but can you spin any honey out of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Langstroth frames.
Don't they kind of incorporate the brood with the honey all in one sheet?
No, that don't happen. Now my entrances are on the end. So when they come in, that first frame on one side is usually a food frame and brood on the inside. And then they'll go about 10 frames of brood, maybe 11, and they stop. That brood, I've had long hives since around 2017. They've never went past the one side of frame 12 at the most, usually frame 11. Most of the time, frame 11 is going to be brood on one side and honey on the other. They don't go past that. Now, I can't tell you if the entrance was on the side, in the middle. I don't know how they would do that because I've never ran that application.
Mm.
But I have tried to stretch them and make more brood, and the comb foundation in the middle of the brood, and it was cheap. Every time I'd come back in 2 weeks, frame 11 would be where the brood stopped, no matter what I did to it.
Mm.
So I've never had the issue with them making like a top bar, a little brood at the top or honey at the top and brood at the bottom. I've never had that issue with the long lang.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Now that's with the entrance on the end now, not on the side.
Yeah. So I guess we originally got the idea to use it to put breeders in. But if we were to do that and pull brood out of it or pull nurse bees out of it, you can't put them in anything else but another Land's hive. So that kind of shot that idea in the foot. So I think I'm gonna take that 25 frame hive and I'm gonna put the follower board. I'm gonna split it in two and make 2 hives out of it. And then because the entrances are on the ends, and then there's one in the middle.
Well, when you harvest the honey out of them, do you take the honey frames and then just put them in a regular Langstroth box to carry them in?
Me?
You don't have to.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. If they have, when I get where I have enough to make a good spin back here in my honey house, I'll pull anything capped out of the yard, and that's the way I do the long langs. I might pull a couple of capped honeys out of several of them, bring them back, spin them, and put them back in the box.
I got
There you go. Yeah.
I would think your breeder queens would be better off in those insulated hives you got.
They are. That's where they're at now.
The NLs.
Yep, that's where they are now.
You know,
And
I
they've
mean,
done
a
very
little
well.
bit. Yeah, I mean, protection wise, and
Yep.
and maybe you can get more grafting material out of them. stuff
Yep.
like that.
Is Bill, is that a nail? Is it comparable, about the same thing as the what's that other one they got?
Apame.
Apamaze? Are they about the same thing?
To
Or is
me,
there-
they're better than the
Really?
Apame hive. Because with the Enel hives, if you just want to take the deep medium setup, the basic kit, and then you put your honey supers on wooden honey supers on top of it,
Yeah.
they'll fit. If you use 10 frame, they'll fit it perfectly. And then you overwinter in your deep medium. So that's what we do. Or we'll do a deep and 2 mediums to overwinter.
Yeah.
But last year I got more honey than I expected out of doing that. And then of course my Demaree splits last year, I got a load of honey out of them.
We'll be making a little experiment this year. I'm going to change my Langstroth hives to a warm hive versus a cold hive design. I think Langstroth made a huge mistake on his original design, where all the hive entrances go in line with the frames. So I'm going to build new bottom boards so my entrance matches how they build hives in buildings and in trees, where the frames run perpendicular to the entrance.
That sounds like a Billy Davis hive to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Is that what a Billy Davis hive is? That's how it should be. That's how the hive. That's how hives should be designed.
Well,
To
Billy
match
Davis
what
talked
they,
about
what they
that
build.
10 years ago when he was still alive, and he called it the warm way. And if you go to, what is it, sustainable beekeeping?
Sustainable beekeeping. I'm gonna tell you what, Tom. When Billy Davis started talking about that, it created such a controversy around here with beekeepers that
Why? You're only matching what they do.
he just did not bring it up ever again after the first couple times he talked about it.
Yeah.
Those
Well,
bees don't care what side they come in that box.
No, they don't care.
If you give them an empty box and you put a hole down in the bottom of that box, at least the first 5 or 6 frames will be perpendicular to that hole. They might go long ways after that, but probably not. Every one. They're never built the way the Langstroths are designed. 99.99% of them.
So
I've seen enough already just doing trees.
Well, what he had
Yeah.
was if you stood behind your hive, the frames went this way instead of this,
Yes,
Yeah,
and
correct.
you could leap through it like a
It's
foul
fast.
yeah, you're not
It's
having
And you don't need to reach over your hive to get to your outside of your frame.
True.
Hey Bob, pull up Flower Street's comment back here a little bit back. It says it's a national hive thing.
Oh,
There you go.
Charlie got it.
Y'all know what a national deep is?
It's a
Yes.
smaller frame.
It's a British
More of a
hive.
square hive.
It is a British hive. It's square.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter which way you put the frames in it. It's because it's square. And
yeah.
the frames fit that square box.
But if you ask the people up and that uses the national beehives, they run them all the warm way. They don't run them the cold way.
Right. And I don't know of anywhere in the United States you can get a national deep.
So Tom,
They're all-
what you're saying is my entrances are in the right place on my long hives then, because they're coming in this
on the
way.
ends.
They're coming in this way to the frame.
Correct, Joey. And I actually went back to the original drawings of the Langstroth Hive a couple weeks ago, and he definitely had it going in line with the frames.
Yeah, you just all you have to do is get your bottom board, plug that hole, and drill a hole in the side of it.
Well, I'm gonna make new bottom boards with with entrance on the long way.
I'd be interested to see how that comes out, how they do.
I would too.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it like 3 or 4 of them. I'm gonna buy a 4x8 sheet of wood, 3/4 inch, and make them.
So are you going to put a
Yeah.
landing board out there for them too?
Yeah, just like the traditional one, with a little landing board. Yeah, it'll basically be the same thing. I'm just turning it the bottom.
Yeah, most of your top bar hives and long lanes, the entrances are on the ends. So
Yeah,
Highland honey, yeah, that she's right in that statement. So maybe it's something to it. I don't know.
I asked 2 years ago when we were down in Tennessee. I asked Dirt Rooster, Randy, what he saw, and he never said he didn't even think about it, but he thought I was right. And I just talked to him again at Nobby, and he actually did his speech on it. That he did, he had all his cutouts in 2024. Every one of them was that way, and everyone. He also mentioned that every of his cutouts were in the shade. He didn't have one hive that was in the sun.
I've heard him say that several times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard him say that too.
You also don't find many hive beetles in cutouts.
True.
Yeah. So I'm going to try it on a few hives. The only thing is I can't put as many hives on my stand because now I'm going to be taking up more space.
Well, you need to,
'Cause I'm
you
be
need to
turning
let us
them.
know how that goes, Tom.
I will. I think I'll be able to make four, or maybe I don't know how many bottom boards I can make on a 4x8 sheet. I guess 8 of them.
I never have understood why the Langstroth is designed the way it is anyway. I always thought it should be square. That way you can put it either way you want to.
That's true too.
All right. Hey, Tom, in the chat there, you want to click on that right there. That's Billy Davis talking about the warm way.
Right.
That's
So I'm reinventing the wheel.
Huh?
I'm going to reinvent it.
Well,
Yeah.
he's got he used to call it a queen castle, or actually he had it wrong. I called it more of a Spanky.
Hey, I come on here to
Anyway,
Tom,
huh?
I was gonna let Tom know that Ricky does offer a hive that has insulation in the top. It's the winter hive, and if you want insulation, he can put them in. He can put it in whatever hive you want. I was just gonna let you know that.
Yeah.
But since y'all talking about insulation, I've been looking at insulation for a project I'm working on. Now, the easiest option would be some kind of spray foam to fill in among the irregular gaps and stuff. But I don't know what the R value of that would be versus getting some of that dense and manually cutting it and putting it in place.
That spray foam, they're not very high in insulation. The open cell's the best versus the closed cell spray foam. I've looked into that, Spanky.
That was Billy talked about the warm way 11 years ago.
Yeah. And he called it the SHP hive.
I don't remember that part of it. I mean, the big thing is he had a designed bottom board with screens and different things. And it's in that video. I just dropped in the link there.
Yeah.
And it was the way the bees came in and all this kind of stuff, and then you got like Jeff down there where Joe's, where he's got instead of a landing board, he's got that the bees have to kind of go underneath the side of the hive to get up inside the hive.
Yeah.
They got that kind of stuff.
And if I remember correctly, Charlie, the way Billy Davis had that hive designed, it was an opening about 2.5 inches long, just enough room for a bee to crawl through it on the long side of the box. And then he had another box that was below it. And it was covered with screen below. It was like a screen bottom board. And on the warm side of that box, he had cut an opening and put rat wire and hardware cloth over it so he could get airflow up into the hive. And then he always kept like a spacer on top of it that you would call a quilt box. And he'd had holes drawn in that with hardware cloth over that.
Yep. That was some kind of
more
a
holes in it, 2 on each side to get that cross ventilation. And then in the winter, he would fill it full of shavings or a quilt of some sort to create the heat dome underneath of it for the hive.
Yeah. And then he would do basically a candy board.
Yeah.
And where those ventilation holes were, he would put a block of wood there. So when it's set up, they pull the blocks of wood out and that airflow would continue on.
Yeah.
It was an elaborate system, but
he swore by it.
Yeah. Well, to bring everybody else's up to speed, we didn't know a tremendous information about Varroa. This is pre-Sammy, Dr. Sammy information.
Yeah, like 80s.
Bees were still being sucked off the hemoglobin by the mites and that kind of stuff. And he was trying to breed basically a hygienic bee. And I talked to Parks Tally down there that was kind of one of the leaders in that group. And he said that they never really did do any mite checks and all that kind of stuff.
Now, he was friends with my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So I've met him.
He was a good con artist.
He was. And he was kind of out there in left field with his beekeeping. But what he did, he was successful at doing.
Well, what I was getting at when I made that statement, it was not really a true statement, but what I'm getting at is hey, you can all pay $25 and come down here and I'll show you how to make sugar shims. Well, when you got there, it was like, hey, you're paying to make sugar shims for all of their hives that day.
Yeah.
So like down the Fat Bee Man.
It was definitely a Tom Sawyer thing. You're going to pay me to do this. This is fun.
He was a good snake oil salesman.
And then I went down there and I paid to get in there. And luckily, it was like this week. It was cold. It was in an old dairy barn.
Uh-huh.
Got in there and he was going over all these hives and it just, describing all this stuff. And then when they were taking a break, and then we're going to show you how to clean wooden frames, basically go through all their frames and clean them for them and scrape them for them and all that. And we were so darn cold that day. I said, I am not cleaning frames for him. And we packed up and got in our car and turned the heat on and we were going home and all that stuff. So,
and he's the one that
Billy was a nice guy, though.
The Beekeeping Club down there in Loudoun County.
Yep.
He's the one that created that group. And when he died, his right-hand man took it over, and that's who still got it.
That's the big boy, big tall fellow with a cowboy hat and a beard.
Yep, that's him.
Okay, let's back up just a minute. Now, Tom, what were you calling this? Cold cell versus warm cell, or something like that?
Warm hive versus cold hive.
Now,
Warm hive?
it's called the warm way versus the cold way.
Now, the way the Langstroth is now, that's called the cold way
Called the
Yep.
cold.
Yes.
because the entrance air can hit every frame open.
Yep.
You can go
Air
straight,
comes
you can go
in
straight into the
and
hive.
goes right up through the frames.
Yeah. Okay.
Where if you got it the warm way, the cold air and any enemies have to goes into the side, goes into the frame versus versus into the frame. I actually will think will help with robbing yellow jackets getting in the hive because now they gotta be even more clever to get around into the hive.
Oh, DC's wanting to fight you in the chat there.
But I'll find out. I'll let everybody know what I find out. I think on one sheet of wood I can make 8 bottom boards, so I'll do it to eight of my hives.
Yeah, the video here that I posted, he's got an insulated cover, and like you say, it's kind of like Nancy's outfit. He's got a rapid round feeder up top there, and then it's a quilt box with the ventilation holes in the top, and that kind of a thing. And then he gets down to the frame, and the frame is, like I say, quite elaborate.
Yeah, I won't be going that
Or not
extensive.
the frame, the bottom board. And what he was talking about, I think, as I remember watching the videos, was that you had all the trash and, even the larvae, it would all fall to the ground.
Yeah.
And all that. And it would actually, look at this, it's growing more grass with nutrients and all that stuff. But
Well,
Yeah.
wasn't that
All
bottom
the
thing
trash
about-
would fall through down into that open space in the bottom,
Vance has to break it.
and then he would come along and pick the hive up, and somebody else would sweep all the trash out, and he'd set the hive back down.
something like that?
Yeah.
And then he claimed that he was this guy named Michael Palmer came down and visited, and he had these ideas of these here 5-frame nukes side by side. And basically Michael copied what he invented, the
Gotcha.
the Palmer hive, as they call it, from Better Bee.
Mhm.
That supposedly that was Billy Davis's idea. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I don't ever remember seeing them.
Well, I've got some, he implied that on several, and there's several different videos out there. Hey, Mike from Easy Ox.
Mike's
But,
being, how are you today?
So,
Well,
with that, huh?
Jeff Harchoff has almost got that with the kind of entrances he builds. On his, he's got a little small entrance on each front corner. So he's halfway there already.
Yeah,
Right.
he's go around the corner.
Yeah.
Right. Then you think about all the people that put their 4 boxes on oh god darn. For the shipping, they put all theirs in the corner too. So they're kind of halfway there.
My question is, why would you, I don't know. To me, I think, I don't know.
I know
Full
one
box,
thing will
I
make
think a
it'll
full
make my
box
job looking at hives a lot easier because now I won't ever be reaching over the hive.
Well,
Yeah.
like mine there, if you look at my hives, the way I got them set up there, there's a space in between these two hives because there's a walkway there. I can go around to the side of that hive and I can sit there and flip through those frames. That's just like Brad here. Brad's doing the same thing up in Manitoba where he works the hives from the inn. And that's also the same thing as like when he works his hives and he uses his hive lifter. He's not grabbing them hives from the sides. He's grabbing the hive boxes from the front and the back, the long part. So his arms are wider than mine on the hive lifter, like that
Right.
and all.
Well, it's like between mine set up kind of like Charlie's. I've got 3.5 to 4 feet between hives. So I've got plenty of room to work because I'm big and clumsy.
Guys, I'm going to hop off for this evening. I appreciate you all. Thank you for allowing me to join you. And we'll see y'all on the next one.
All right, Bob.
Good to
That's
see you
later.
tonight, Bob.
Good night.
Right. Right.
What's up, Will?
Hey Joe, it's from watching your videos, it's positively disturbing seeing that picture behind you right now. Disturbing. I think about you and I think about Mike Berry down there and I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
Kind of unusual, isn't it?
Longman apiaries get 16 bottom boards from a sheet of plywood.
From one sheet, 16 of them.
That's what he said
Yeah.
right there on the chat.
If you do it right, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's Doug.
my entrance is going to be a little different. With my landing board. So I'll have to see. I might not be able to get as many.
Well, you wouldn't happen to have a landing board, right?
You don't have to.
No, you don't have to, but it's
Mark, he
probably
gets
better
15,
that you do.
he gets 15 off of there.
Yeah.
hey, I wanted to ask you guys, have any of you guys worked with USDA through Farm Services for anything with your apiaries and your farming side of things?
Yep. I get ELAP and NAP insurance through them.
Yep, that's what I was looking at. And then there's another private one, but it's subsidized by the government that's related to the drought.
Yep.
I forget, it's like 3 attorney names on it.
Yeah.
If you're good at paperwork, USDA pretty much helps you a lot. You have to keep up with everything you do,
Yeah.
and they'll cover your losses, or at least that's what they would do for us down here.
Okay.
Well, you've got a good agent where you're at, because the first 10 years you're in this insurance, it's free.
Okay.
After 10 years, you start paying a premium. But
Okay.
the agent that I have here, I turned in bee loss for the first year of the drought. And I called the other day to find out what was going on with it. They can't find my paperwork because I've never talked to an adjuster.
That's about right.
And I turned in some more the other day for this past year. And I've got an appointment to go see him. And I told the girl, I said, look, you got to answer some questions because I want copies of that paperwork.
Okay.
So make sure you get copies of everything
Okay.
when you deal with it.
Yeah, I'm going to look maybe next week at going down to our local, USDA Farm Service and meeting with the guys. I sent them an email. I filled out an application, and I also reached out to the drought agency guy, and we're kind of emailing back and forth right now, just getting started into some things.
Yeah.
Well, do they know anything about bees?
Depends on who.
I mean, what I'm getting at is they're used to dealing with cattlemen and cropmen,
Well, here's
I'm
how
hearing
they
it's
look.
legit.
Here's how they look at it. Honeybees in Virginia are livestock, and honey is your crop.
Yep.
They treat it just like any other livestock insurance or crop insurance.
But the main thing of it is, if you're going to get all that, you got to be on the all on top of the table. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you do.
you had to guarantee that you had to prove every time if you were like just kind of every now and then treat your bees for mites.
Yeah, yeah.
They wasn't gonna have that. You had to do full treatments all the time. You had to prove that you treated and show how you did it and what you did it with. All kind of stuff. Even if you were just trying to be protected from a storm blowing your hives over, you still had to show all treatment and everything.
And
It was just a lot of paperwork for me.
the USDA office that I deal with makes me get a bee inspection every year. I have to have that certificate of health from the state apiarist every year. And I have to turn it in.
Yeah, I was watching that Pollination Nation. Is it that Matt Walker down in Florida?
Yeah.
And he had one about the economics. He had one about the economics, and then he just posted one up here within the last day or two, certainly within the last week. And he talked about, the USDA Farm Service, and he talked about this other private, drought insurance, and kind of talked his way through a bunch of that stuff. And it kind of opened my eyes, and I thought I'd, start going down that direction. And I was just curious what you guys knew about it. So that's
in
great.
In Virginia, like my local office, if I have a bee yard that is outside of that local office's jurisdiction, I have to go to that office that bee yard, the jurisdiction which that bee yard sits in. I have to go to that other local office and file for that bee yard.
And that's typically by county? It's typically by county?
Sometimes one county will cover 4 or 5 different counties.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Here in Virginia. Now,
That's weird being federal. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, well,
I'm lucky. I'm in Ohio. We don't have to do any of that stuff. We just have a bee inspector. If you sell bees, you got to have your bees inspected by the state. That's it. That's $5 a yard. So I spend $10 a year. I just mailed it in this past week, so I can sell bees again.
That's all you got to do for your government insurance?
I don't have to have any insurance in Ohio. We're already covered.
Oh.
Any liabilities.
To sell queens and bees, we have to be inspected in PA too.
Yeah,
but
we have to be inspected.
This farm service stuff's kind of
it's a separate insurance.
Yeah, it's another thing, and then the drought insurance is yet a third thing I think.
Well, see, the drought was covered by the USDA in Virginia because I'm still in a moderate drought.
Well, up here, what I heard, well, I'm still
one
working
that you're
into
talking
it.
about. I can get that coverage as well in Virginia.
Okay.
But the USDA has a drought program as well.
Okay.
You have to ask about it. If you don't ask about it, they are not going to volunteer anything.
Well, that's kind of what I'm finding out is you have to pretty directly go to them on specific insert. You got to have your ducks in a row before you go there.
Yep. You better have your stuff together when you walk through that door.
Yeah, because my drought, my private, that's the government supplemental or whatever subsidized. He asked me right out the gate today if I'm carrying any other insurance on my hives anywhere else yet. And I said, as of now, I'm not. But I'm going to look at that ELAP and that NAP or whatever that other one. I think I need to look at both of those.
Yes,
because like you said, they're free, and they'll pay me as I lose hives. As long as it meets a certain criteria and you document it.
Now, if you go into USDA office and say, I lost hives, the first question they're going to ask you is, did you lose the boxes or the bees? There's a difference.
Yep.
And don't expect to get 100% of the value.
Oh no, I'm sure, but
Yeah, you're going to get like 35% of the value.
right.
Yeah, that's all you're going to get.
But it's
That's
free
if you're lucky.
insurance for 10 years on that, right?
Yeah,
It's just all the strings that are going to be attached after that.
exactly.
I was reading the chats over here.
Yeah. Let's see. Will lives in Pennsylvania. And Bill lives up in,
Shenandoah Valley.
well, okay, Shenandoah Valley. And then Jarrett lives down in Ferrum, Virginia.
Yeah,
He's
I know where Ferrum's at.
He's there right below the college. He works at the college.
Okay.
Well, I worked for the government for 27 years, and I'm going to tell you, as a hobby beekeeper, as long as I can keep the government out of my hobby, I am
There you
going
go.
to do it. Because
Yeah,
I
I
have
get
had
that.
to work through so much red tape and bureaucracy over those 27 years. I had a full head of hair when I went to work with them.
And none of them were gray, right?
Nope. I'm just kidding about that part, but you got to go so much red tape and bureaucracy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just not. When I got off the phone with him the other day, the girl there at the USDA office that I deal with, it was like, because I called her direct line, she didn't answer. So I called the office line, and she answered the phone. And this office would probably fit in a 12 by 12 room. Okay, that's how small it is. And so she started talking to me like she was carrying on a conversation with somebody else about some cattle. And I said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" She says, "No." And I told her who it was. She says, "Oh yeah, the bee man." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I need to come in and see you because I need to file for loss this year." And I said, "I've never seen an adjuster over last year's loss yet." And I said, "I've not heard anything about it. What happened to the paperwork?" She says, I'll have to get back to you." I said, "You lost it, didn't you?" She says, "Yeah, I did."
Well, my
I
understanding
have actually
was
tried to get projects done, not beekeeping related, but projects done with the government. And I'd have Department A telling me I need to talk to Department B. So I called Department B and they say, "Well, you need to see Department A." I never could get A and B to talk to each other.
Yep. You had to be the go-between.
Yeah. I finally found, after I skipped C, D, E, and F and got to G, I found them and they said, "Oh, this is what you got to do. Just forget Department A and Department B. They don't even need to be involved."
I had a government contract, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
Well, the only government money I ever got was grant money, where I wrote a grant,
Oh boy.
and it was local county. It was only in this. We were, I think, the only county in the state of Maryland out of 23 counties that they had a ag promotion money, and not the fact they're going to buy you a tractor, but they were. That's what kind of got me, was that they gave me some money for like that bottling tank and queen rearing and all that stuff, basically. And then I needed a bottling tank so I could bottle my honey and go to the farmer's market. You know, they were looking at that level of stuff. And then after so many years of that, it all dried up. Used to be, it was 100%. They would buy the product for you. Then it got to be, I'll say 50%, up to 50%. That's how it was.
it was matching funds. You had to have matching funds.
Yeah, up to 50. If you put the money, then they would figure, well, we'll give you 30% of it, 40%, or up to 50% of it.
Yeah.
So that's how that all works.
Well, I've been tortured through a FEMA. We had a storm come through, and I was tortured through getting a FEMA grant for down here in town where I'm on council, and that was torturous, and it took years, and it was horrible, but
Yeah.
it did end up coming through. But Bill and Joe, you're kind of prepping me for the same. Bill, I can't believe. I mean, my understanding is that they check in with you maybe even quarterly on like your hive count. You know, trying to keep
your
track of
office
all that
may.
stuff.
Your office may do that.
Okay.
The one
Yours
I'm
didn't.
working with, you're lucky to get a response out of them once a year when you go in to refill your paperwork after the next year.
And Joe, yours was just as bad.
Huh?
Did you have any claims or any working back and forth with your farm service office or not?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I keep them out of it. It's
Yep.
easier just to pay for anything I lose.
Yep.
I'm gonna give you another example. We were trying to purchase something with the state of Louisiana, and it just seemed like it just fell off a cliff somewhere. And my supervisor would always call, and there'd be some kind of roadblock, and he'd wait and wait and wait. We finally drove to Baton Rouge one day and walked in that department, and walked in there, and he didn't ask nobody he needed to talk to her. He just walked in her office. I'm here to talk about a vehicle we're trying to get. Oh, yeah, I meant to call you. It was laying on the top of her stack of papers. Imagine that. That paper was laying in a stack of papers that tall. And here he has been waiting for weeks to get this vehicle purchased. Again, it's not beekeeping, but it's the same bureaucracy.
Yeah.
No matter where you go.
And you're lucky that when y'all walked out of the office, she didn't take that thing off the top and lift it up and slide it under the bottom.
Oh, he picked the paperwork up and took it with him. All he needed it sent to him.
Well, like I say, that FEMA stuff I worked through was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look at what they did down in Asheville, North Carolina, and all that.
Ooh, don't get me
Well, they've
started.
forgotten about all that.
Huh?
They forgot about all that conveniently as soon as the fire started in California.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is anything to FEMA, they're not there to help or anything else. They're looking, seeing, and that's about all they do.
They're there to regulate.
Did you hear what President Trump said today when he went to
He
visit
did-
North
I didn't hear,
Carolina?
but I hear they're probably going to fire them all and get rid of them.
Well, he said he's going to totally revamp the FEMA or shut it down.
That's what they ought to do. That's about all it's good for.
Give the money to the states and let them see to it.
Well,
When
like
they
he
have
was,
a disaster.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's like,
That can still
know.
be an issue.
yeah, could be.
That's another government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was doing the FEMA stuff, we did get people assigned to us, and it did help. Now, I'm going to say that we went through like 8 people that were leads. You know what I mean? It just kept changing and changing and changing, and it did work through. But yeah, so I'm going to go through it and see what it's all about. And
Yeah, just talk to them and find out what they need. Get the paperwork, get it filled out. Fill the paperwork out while you're there.
Yep.
Because if you take
You
it
should
home,
try to do some technical work for the
questions about how
government.
to fill it out. Trying to
Well, I
get
have the application filled out that all I got to do is sign it and hand it to them, and that's
Yes.
kind of what I'm planning on doing when I go in there to talk to them.
Yeah.
But if this doesn't work out, I'll just disappear off their radar screen for forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what I'm getting, how many? I mean, have you got 1,000 hives that you're trying to insure?
Nope. I'm sitting about 42 or 44 right now. So
Because when you go from
I'm not worried about where I'm at now. I'm worried
when
about
you go
where
from
I might
hobbyist
head.
to sideliner, it's a different set of regulations. And when you go from sideliner to commercial, it's a completely different set of regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure that what they say a hobbyist is, they have a certain number of hives that they or less that delineates that you're a hobbyist. Then they have a certain number of hives. Under a certain number of hives, it says you're a sideliner. And then they have a certain number of hives that says you're a commercial.
Right.
So make sure you check all that out before you go in there.
Okay.
How far do you know how far the hobbyist goes?
I want to say it goes to like 20 or 25. And then anything above 25 to, I believe it's 200 is you're a sideliner. And then anything over 200, you're considered commercial. I believe that's what it is. I may not be right, but I'm close.
That's the state you're in, or is that
USDA?
USDA?
Yeah, so that should be federal.
Well, I know somebody that files as a hobbyist all the time on his taxes, and he's always had around 200 colonies, but he's still classified as a hobbyist. That's in Mississippi.
Yeah. So every USDA office is different. It's like they're running from a different playbook. And each state is different because each state has a USDA office. And then you got the USDA in DC, and each state does something different. I don't know why. Instead of all being on the same sheet of music, all different. I'll never understand that.
All right, let's change the subject.
Yeah, it's painful. We beat it to death. Sorry, guys.
You kicked over a can of worms, Bill.
Maybe we helped you change your mind.
Well, you got me scratching my head for sure.
That's kind of like on some of the jobs we used to work on. If we was working close to the gate where new hires were coming in, all of us would start hollering, "Go back, go back! You don't want this job."
I did get through and vaporize them the other day, Charlie.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm going to try to get out there. Like I say, I might try some of them tomorrow. If it's close to 40 degrees or right at, a little 40 plus, kind of depends on the weather.
Would that be a third round of vaporizing for you?
No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to try to I'm trying to get sugar bricks in there.
Oh, okay.
Pollen patties.
Okay. Bill, what information were you looking at when you were talking to me the other day about what time the flows are going to start or what time the bloom is going to start in like my area versus Charlie's? What were you referencing on that?
There's a national map that shows gives you a general idea of when the flow is going to, or the bloom is going to occur in your area.
But that's how they refer to it, as the bloom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I want to look, Charlie, I've been kind of scanning the farm paper to see if there was something like that in there, but maybe it's just something I need to look at.
No, it's what's it called, Bill? The groated something days.
Yeah. And it gives you the national map when.
Is that like a farmer's almanac type thing almost?
No, it's a USDA or agricultural thing.
Yeah.
Degree, DEGRE, degree growing days.
Let me see if I can find it again.
I'm Googling it too. Oh, there it is. Calculator. What's that do?
Here
Growing degree days.
I got it.
Let me look here.
The website is vividmaps.com/spring in the US /. So can I share my screen, Charlie?
Yeah. Kit percent.
Well, Charlie, while he's setting that up, Brian at Baker Bees has a question about Demaree for swarm control. You might want to get to later.
Where is he at?
He's up about 8 or 10, 12
There we go.
Last comment.
I'm going to ask again, does anybody do the Demaree method of swarm control? Yeah, Brian, I do. I do a rolling Demaree, and Bill up there does the traditional Demaree.
Yep.
And what I do is I take, all right, first thing is my hives are 3 mediums. I take the top medium box off. I pull all the, I'll say 98% cap brood out of that hive, or those bottom boxes, if I can get in there deep enough. Put them in that top box, and then take all the other stuff that was in the top box and put it back in the hive where it's open comb, so she has plenty of places to lay. So you got 2 mediums, you got a queen excluder, you're going to put on, let's say, 2 honey supers, and I'll put that top medium brood box up on top. And come back in about 5 days or so, up to 7, cut out all the swarm cells, because they're going to try to make swarm cells because they can't smell the pheromones coming up that far. And she will not swarm. The main thing about you have to understand about the beekeeping part of it is if you give the queen space. Now, the space I'm talking about is laying space. Has to be drawn comb, a bunch of long as she's able to continuously lay. She will not make swarm cells, and she will not swarm. And the main thing, in upstairs, you can either harvest those swarm cells upstairs and make splits with them, or you can destroy them. And if I only have, let's say, 5 frames of cap brood at the time, I will fill that other box, that rest of that box up with foundation, and they will draw the wax out along with that brood will hatch. Now, depending how old those brood frames are, you might be doing this rolling Demaree, tearing that hive down every 7 to 10 days. And then Bill can explain his style. It's a little bit less involved, but
that's the rolling, right?
That's the rolling.
How often do you do that?
Every 7 to 10 days.
7 to 10.
Yeah, figure once a week, once every week and a half. You're taking the cap brood out of the bottom, take it up, put it upstairs. Take the comb that has been hatched out. I'll say you kind of have to watch the comb. They'll start backfilling it with honey up there. So if it's 85% hatched or 90% hatched, I'll pull them frames out and put them downstairs and put the fully capped upstairs. And you're constantly doing that. And you'll increase your hive population, which in turn increases your honey production, almost doubles it. My hive went from 50 to 80 pounds a hive. And now that also depends where you live too, how much forage those bees have. You might get 100 pounds of honey.
Now you're using 2 mediums, right?
2 mediums.
And calling that pretty much single brood chamber management.
Yeah, because it is.
Basically
2 mediums equal 1 deep.
Yeah.
Now, I'll go ahead and explain Bill's thing, and Bill, stop me if I'm wrong. What Bill does he goes in there. He's got a deep box, and there's a medium there. But let's just figure on the deep box. He's got an empty deep box off to the side. He pulls that deep box off the bottom board. He puts the empty deep box on. He puts a frame with the queen on in that box. He puts, let's say, 2 cap brood frames near to the point where they're going to emerge into that box. And then he fills the rest of it with drawn comb.
2 frames of honey, 2 frames of pollen as well.
All right, a couple frames honey and pollen along with that, so they got resources. Queen excluder, let's say a couple honey supers, and then he'll take that deep box with all the rest of that brood in there and stick it up on top. Come back 7 days. Go shake them darn bees off. You got to shake them off. Make sure you smash every queen cell or harvest them. Some of them, all of them, whatever. And how long does that last? That's, you say it will last you all summer or all honey season long?
All the honey season. Yep. The
You
only
just-
thing you have to do if you just put 2 supers in between those 2 deeps, or in between those 2 queen excluders, the only thing you'll have to do is take the deep off the top and add a honey super, or you can add the honey super on top of the deep, and they'll keep on filling.
And the key is not to do that if you're going to have cold temperatures, though. Is that what you said?
Right. You gotta wait till your flow just before the maximum part of the flow hits. Because here in Virginia, I think the maximum flow hits around the 20th of April to the 1st of May. So I'll do that Demaree around the 15th of April. And it's on like Donkey Kong at that
I'm
point.
gonna do that to a bunch of mine this year.
So I got this map.
All right, let me bring it up.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, how do I snap a picture? I'm gonna go back in and get a
All right.
picture of this then.
So can you make it a little bit bigger, Charlie, or is that as big as it gets? So right there, that's Shenandoah County. You can't see my pointer. But anyway, I'm in the April area. Charlie is in the April area. If you look at the color over here for April, we're in the April area.
Yeah, but your county's May.
You're right. You're about where my pointer is, right in there, aren't you? There's 81 probably right there.
Can't
I
see
don't
it.
see your
Yeah, I
pointer.
can't see your pointer.
You can't.
So Charlie's
How
definitely
about
in
over here?
April.
You see it over here now?
Nope.
Huh.
So
My York County's May.
you're right here you're in May.
Yep.
So this is what most of your farmers go by, is this right here.
Yeah,
So
because last year I had Queens coming in, I think the second week of May, first or second week of May, and it was right. It was spot on. So
Yeah, so we will start planting around the 15th of April. Because typically by the 15th of April, frost is over. It's not really any danger of any cold weather after the 15th of April.
for you guys,
So
yep.
we plant. So I do my split as well.
I'm selling my nukes 15th of April.
Yeah, see, you're ahead of me.
You're in a whole different climate, Joe.
Yeah, you're in a whole
Yeah.
different climate.
Whole nother world.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. What I've been doing as far as my style of Demaree is around the last week of March, right before April. I'm hoping my bees are boiling out like a darn volcano, and they're bees from the bottom board to the top, hopefully. And then that's where my game plan is, if I've got a hive, that's the main thing about a Demaree. You got to have a strong hive.
Yep.
If it ain't a hive, you open that hive up and you can't see any frames at all because of the bees are that thick. Then you got a hive that's ready for a Demaree. If you open that hive up and you can see all the frames and the bees are more or less in between the seams,
It's not strong enough.
it ain't strong enough.
Nope. So
And-
I start feeding pollen between the 1st and the 15th of February. And
Yeah,
by the 1st of April, all of my 10 frame hives look like Charlie's nuke right there.
See how
So-
that is? And now see, you can see the tops of frames, but there's a good bee coverage there, but I like it to where you can't even see that. I mean, it's even more than that. You
Right.
know, and that's and
When you
when you
pull
get
that
it like that, you get it
When
like
you
that.
pull the inner cover on my hives, all you see are bees, and they're coming out and walking down the sides of the hive.
So with the timing for you and Charlie, mid-February is when you're going to hit them with pollen, right?
I'm gonna.
I mean, the 1st
Yeah,
and the
it's-
15th.
It might be going on this Sunday.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be April 1st probably to give it 4 weeks to get into May.
You're too late. You're too late.
Really?
When does
Yeah,
that maple
too
tree
late.
bloom? When's the maple tree blooming? I know it blooms in March in your area. You ain't that far off from me.
Okay.
You should be in there 1st of February. If you want some banging hives, you need to put them pollen patties in there in February, because by mid-March, the soft maple trees are going to start blooming. They're going to grab that nectar and pollen, and they are going to turn their nose up to that pollen patty and never take it again.
Yeah.
Like
So,
say, right. We only got a week to February.
Yeah.
Next
Little trick that we do, since Apis Biologics came out, we will take pollen sub and double mix Apis Biologics in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take a scoop and I'll put a line on top of frames, 3 or 4 frames of that Apis and that pollen sub.
And your pollen sub.
Are you putting? Are you making a slurry and put that on there?
No, it's dry.
Okay. All right.
I can't do a slurry.
Well, I did that with my cell builders.
Yeah.
Or in the past, you take and I would get, well, most of the time it's Pro Sweet, and I'll pour so much of that in a bowl, and then I'll put a cup of, most of the time it's pollen powder out of Man Lake, and I'll sit there and mix it up to where it's about like pancake batter. Yep. And I'll drizzle that on top of the 3 or 4 frames right above the grafting frame, and them darn bees will come up there like a bunch of little hogs and line up and sit there and smoke that damn stuff down, and feed that jelly, get that jelly roll.
Yeah, but that's kind of a little trick we tried last year, was doing that with the dry stuff. And if you mix a little honey in with it, that's from your bees, and you mix a little honey in with it, they take it even faster. Yeah. They'll fight for it. They'll fight over it.
Yeah. Now Chris there wants to know, is patties better than dry pollen sub? And
it depends on what you put in that dry pollen sub along with it.
Yeah. Well, I put it to you this way: if they can't fly, they got the pollen in the box and they can eat that.
That's kind of how I always looked at it.
Because that pollen patty is nothing but fondant with pollen powder in it. That's all it is. And then if it's global patties, they mix Apis Biologics in it.
That's what I'm going to put on when I go in, because I got the global patties from down at the show, which I think has a rocket fuel in it, whatever. So I'm just going to open it up, and I'm going to put one of those in on top of each one that looks like it made it through and looks healthy, and I'm going to get my good queen count at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I've got 3/4 of a pallet of them sitting in the freezer.
Yep.
Charlie, you ever had trouble with laying workers in that top box on the Demaree?
No. The only thing I have trouble is I didn't get in there quick enough, and I had myself I said, I got a virgin queen in there, because here's a lid laying down like that. And I'm looking on the frame like, oh, there she is. Oh, there's another one over here and another one over here. And I'm like, queen, that's one thing about it. You want to take about 6 queen clips to the apiary with you in your jacket at all times. Yep. Because I've did that. I couldn't find a queen for nothing, and I've made a shaker box out of a queen excluder, like Palmer did, and I started shaking bees, and I think I got 6 queens out of that one hive, and all that, because
I always have a half a dozen of them hair roller little queen cages in the pocket of my bee jacket, just in case.
Yeah. But the first year I did the Demaree, I missed 3 or 4 queen cells up in that top box because they hit them. And I came back and I had virgin queens down about 3 boxes
everywhere
in that Demaree.
That's the downside of it.
That's the downside of
it. Is there
Joey, I do something a little bit.
I'm sorry.
I do something that's not really a Demaree, but I run 2 double deeps, and by now my queen is laying on the top box, So by the time March 1st comes about, or the middle of March, she'll have 5 or 6 frames, or by April, she'll have that whole top box laid up. I'll go ahead and take her. And this is what I've always been doing. So I guess it's a Demaree, but I don't do boxes in between. I take her, another frame of open brood, a couple of them. And if I have drones, I'll take my drone frame and put them down the bottom box with all my drawn comb and put those 3 or 4 frames then up in the top box. So she can lay up the whole bottom box.
Are y'all moving the cap brood up to the top for a specific purpose to keep them from putting honey in it or something? Or
When you do the traditional, the way I do
The
it
same thing.
is you're taking the brood out of the bottom, okay,
yeah,
setting it aside. You're giving her a couple of frames of cap brood, honey and pollen and drawn comb. And the reason you're moving that box to the top is because you want to give them a false sense of having swarm. It's a swarm control split.
okay.
So as those bees, those nurse bees hatch out, they go to the bottom. They go down to her brood nest. And the workers come up there and backfill it with honey.
And then they backfill down, right?
And they backfill from the top down.
Yeah, that was one thing I learned last year. I did under supering and over supering, and I found that they start up here and they start coming down. They don't go from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it wouldn't work right for you if you just moved that brood just above the excluder. You need to move it all the way to the top.
All the way up, because you don't want those nurse bees to still have a sense of a queen. You want them separated,
That's for
taking care of
swarming.
that brood up there.
And that's what gets her laying like crazy, because all of a sudden she thinks
Yeah,
she
because
doesn't
now
have any.
she thinks, oh my God, all my bees are gone and I got to repopulate the hive. So she goes into high gear late. Because you got the workforce.
And another thing is
coming into
that brood up there will draw them bees up.
up. They have to have a
And they
reason
will
to go
start
through a queen
filling
excluder.
everything up there.
Yep.
Okay. Bees won't naturally go through a queen excluder. They have to have a reason. So you're giving them that reason. They're going up to take care of that brood.
The open brood.
The open
I would like
brood
to
at
try
the
a
top.
couple of them. I guess I'm scared to, but I'd like to try a couple of them.
Start with one. Just do one in the beginning until you get the hang of it. Because when you tear this thing down, Joe, last year we tore one down. The very first one we tore down, I got 4 supers of honey and I got 6 splits out of it. So there's your overwintered splits if you're going to sell nukes the next year.
Yeah.
Because it's a bee production
A
split.
lot of work.
It's a swarm control split, and it's a honey production split all in one. And they're worth it. They're worth the trouble. Now,
You got my attention talking about how much honey you can make, so I'm going to try it.
now
That's a big
mine-
thing. You can double the honey now. He's got more forage than I do.
Now, the conventional, the traditional that I do, when I set it up, the only time I touch it again is I might roll that deep up and check that medium underneath of it. And if they need another super, they get another super. I never go back in the bottom box because I know it's full of brood. Because there would be very, very little activity in that hive if she was either dead or wasn't laying very well. And if
But
she
when-
wasn't laying very well, I'm going to run a new queen in the entrance and let them duke it out. And the new queen's going to take over and take off laying again.
Where the difference is when Charlie goes back into his bottom brood box And if she's got that laid up and he pulls more brood up, it's just going to keep jacking. She's going to keep laying, and they're going to keep increasing the size of the population. That's the advantage of what, that's the spin that Charlie's doing. Am I saying that right, Charlie?
Yeah, but Bill does the same thing. That's what it is. You got more, the bigger workforce you got, the more honey comes into the hive.
Yep.
Right.
And with Charlie's, his advantage over me on doing that, he's got a hive lifter. If I were to do a rolling Demaree like that, I've got to tear it apart box by box.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't roll up to it with a hive lifter and pick up 3 or 4 boxes at once and move them out of the way to get to the brood box.
Right, because that was one of the things that I liked about it is that you can pick the top box along with, let's say, 2 or 3 honey supers, and you pick it up as a unit, and it doesn't just where you break the box is where the bees get kind of disturbed, and they're in the air. But the rest of that box is full of bees, and you don't disturb it with that hive lifter machine. Now Joey's got a hive lifter, not like mine. He's got the A model, I guess you call it, B1. And he could jack it up like mine, or he could try Bill's method too. If you're doing deeps down there, I'd do it that way.
Yeah. But you can actually do them with 5-frame nukes as well.
There's a lot to be said for that too. I know a lot of guys that are really cranking with 5-frame nuke boxes stacked vertically.
Clay said he had swarm cells in his bottom box. When he left, I can tell you what happened to that, Clay. You left too many eggs or too much young larvae in that bottom box, and they made those cells.
The true Demaree split, you're supposed to pull.
If that queen is busy laying and that's all she's doing, they're not going to create swarm cells. They will not do it.
I thought when you put brood back in that bottom box, the bottom brood box, isn't that supposed to be all capped?
It's capped.
Yeah.
But Clay made a statement over here on the side. He had swarm cells in his bottom box too. But that's why he had the swarm cells in his bottom box. He put he put eggs or something like that in there. And if they made them later, then she was not a very good queen and she wasn't laying much.
You got to remember something, that the manipulation thing here is you want her to lay every cell she can possibly get up with an egg. Now you've forced those forager bees. We can't put any honey or pollen except for maybe up in the real corners of them frames.
Yep.
And we can't do anything else. Well, we got to put it upstairs in them honey supers. You forced them to do that.
Yeah.
Or you manipulated them to do that. It's another
it's like single brood box management. It's just like single brood box management is what it is. Except you've got a taller stack of boxes on the top than 2 or 3. That's what it is.
That's why the commercial guys do single brood chamber management. It forces the honey upstairs.
Yeah, it does. Like these guys that pollinate the almonds, that bottom box is a brood chamber. It forces those bees to put it up top.
Once you get the hang of it, and you know, kind of get the process in your mind and some experience, it's like it ain't a big deal. But what gets me is it took me 10 years or more. You know, I listened to some commercial guys. Well, we don't use double brood. We only use single brood. It's too much space, physical space.
Right.
And no, you know, they wouldn't elaborate on it. It was at a bee meeting. And then after I kind of figured this out as long with I was at another club and he talked about his rolling Demaree, and it was so much information that it was like it just blew over my head, and I was like, just I finally kind of figured it out. And people talk about, you know, swarming and this and that, and I got the experience now, and I'm like, okay, you're running double deeps, right? Yeah. I says, and they won't put nothing up in the honey supers on top of a double deep. I said, yep. I says, let me give you the scenario how all that's going to play out. I said, she lays everything up in the bottom box, right? Yeah. And then I said, you take them 6 center frames and she'll lay up the storm of brood in them 6 in the top deep box. Yep. And I says, then here comes the honey flow. And what do? They pack the honey off to the right and left of that brood. And then when that honey in the middle or the brood in the middle gets hatched, what do? They backfill it.
Yeah.
And I said, you get mad at it. Like, why ain't you putting it up here? You know, they don't even touch that darn honey super. You pull them deeps out of there and you put fresh deeps in, you know, open. She's going to lay in there. No, they don't. They backfill it with honey again because it's the size of the cavity that is what is determining all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then once
Joey, you mentioned that single brood management on your horizontal hives. How many frames does the queen do? 10, right?
10.
11.
10 about max.
Yeah.
So you got a single deep box. How many frames you have? 10.
Yep.
So works perfect.
And that single brood chamber management, unless you're going to do a Demaree, a traditional rolling Demaree, that single brood chamber sits on that bottom board. It never comes off. You don't have to lift it.
Right.
And all you're doing is you're going to put a queen excluder on it to keep her in there. And you're just going to start piling honey boxes on top of it because that's where all your honey is going to go.
Hey, speaking of lifting, guys, Bill, can you get a decent deal on those hive lifter tools through your shop or not?
I don't know anybody that makes them, builds them. Charlie's got that contact.
Oh, okay.
It's a guy out of Canada. It's Boris out of Canada.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I looked them up and I saw it looks like there's only one place to get them. I just wasn't sure if Bill could get his hands.
Yeah, it's his design and he builds them.
Yeah.
And then Joey's got the B1. I got the B3 with a hydraulic cylinder.
So electric over hydraulic.
Yeah. And that's the one you want.
Yeah.
So
Mike Bay. I talked to Mike Berry for 2 years and about that. And he said, you know, the last time I seen him before I ordered it this past year is that, you know, he said, if I'd have done it all over again, he had a B2, which is, I'll say like screws inside of tubes that raise that thing up, I think. And he said, I would got the hydraulic one for another $300 or $400 more. And I said, that's what I already figured that one out.
So Joey, that's the one that you have.
I've got the B1.
Oh,
You got the B1 is like
it's more like a dolly.
Okay.
Yeah. I do a single brood management, but I do a little bit of Demaree type technique. Since I have double deeps, I have ones right now half my hives are doubles and the other half are singles, but another couple more weeks or I'll be doubles. And she'll either be in the top box or the bottom box. Laying up brood to the 1st of April. Basically, at the 1st of April, I'll put her in the bottom box with just her frame of eggs plus another brood frame, and I'll have the drone frame down there if there's drone cells in the drone frame. Then I'll go ahead and take all the other brood that's in her box and put it above the queen excluder. And then I'll put empty comb down in the bottom box so she can lay up all those empty combs for the next 3 weeks. It'll take her to lay up those other basically 7 frames. And then,
So
then
I got
all that
got a
brood up on
question,
top
Tom.
will come out, and that'll give my population like a Demaree. Then in the middle of May, that'll get me to the first or second week of May. I'll do basically the same thing. I'll leave her down in the bottom box. I'll take 3 or 4 frames of brood out, put it up in the second box, and put empty comb down in the bottom box. And that'll get me to the end of May to the 1st of June. Swarm season's over, and I don't have to worry about it.
So
And I've
I got a
done 2
question.
little mini Demaree type deals.
I got a question for you. Why are you moving the queen?
I only move it the first time if she's in the top box.
She'll move herself because that bottom box is her brood box. She'll go down on her
Some
own.
of them will and some of them won't. But she's already late. But when they come out of winter, they're already off the top box, and she'll lay up that top box first.
Not always.
Not always.
I got
Good
a
queens will move down, Bill. I agree.
Tom's asking about the bees, about laying up all 10 frames. Usually when I'm putting it like down in the bottom, I'll put the outer flames will be honey just for food. But now, Tom, you're running 8 frames. I don't have a lot of experience with 8 frames, but I know the guy up the road here that I helped had them. And what I found with that was we were trying to do a deep and a medium, and it seemed like to me, because you have less frames, it's closer to a cavity of a tree from what I've seen of it. And in that situation, when it comes to single brood chamber, I think you really double deeps is really the way to go with that 8 frame equipment, and then put your honey supers above.
Yeah, I mean, we run some 8 frame stuff too.
That's what I found. I found it. I couldn't keep up with her laying so much, and she really needed, she was a prolific queen. I said, you know what? I think we need to go double deeps on that. So
A good queen will lay up 10 frames. Or basically 10
yeah,
frames.
but I'm over there,
10 frames rolling.
at that
If you
time,
got an 8 frame box, he's going to have to put a couple frames up on top if she's a good queen.
well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't have any experience, and you don't think 2 frames make a bunch of difference, but it does.
They do.
It does.
2 frames
Just like
makes a lot
Joey
of difference.
says.
And I
And
found
some
that out.
queens needs 11 frames.
Well, when you're running
10
8
and a
frame
half.
boxes, you almost have to run 2 brood boxes.
I got to the point where I told him, I said, I think, we were experimenting with a 8 frame deep and a medium as a brood chamber. And it just seemed like I was running out of space for this queen, and
Yep.
queen cells were starting and all this stuff. And I'm like, I think we need to go. And, I said, I think, it was an experiment. Basically, I said, let's put 2 double deeps and then your honey supers above that and see if that doesn't alleviate this problem and stuff. So, but he's kind of a guy that he's young and he's got his own business and he's very busy with his day job, I'll call it. And all that. He's not, I'll say, on top of things a lot of times.
Yeah. I have 3 8 frame boxes, and I can't run single brood management on my 8 frame.
No, it's hard to do on
I
8
have to
frame.
really be on them, taking frames out, getting her frames to lay on.
Yeah. Now, we have created a 6 frame nuke before out of 8 frame boxes with a 2 frame feeder. In frame feeder, it creates a 6 frame nuke. Now, that's kind of a different animal too than an 8 frame.
Yeah, that would be better, because then you put a box on top, you're down to 14 frames.
Yeah. So if you run the double brood chamber management on the 8 frames, I think you're better off. I really do.
I do on my 3. I don't do what I do in my yard. They're in my other yard, my 8 framers, just for that reason. I inherited them a few years ago.
And if now 5 frame, if you do nothing but 5 frame hives, I mean, single brood chamber management there is pretty easy too. You're going to be moving frames, but you're not lifting all that weight all the time.
Right.
So, and that's, we want a quick producing support hive. We'll set up a nuke and put a good queen in there, and that's how we get some frames of nurse bees for the cell builders real quick, as we use a nuke.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I found over the years. I mean, I started watching Michael Palmer, and at that time, the idea of making newts was an old idea new again because of him.
Yeah.
And I started buying nuke, instead of some people taking 10 framers and pulling the nuke out of it, I just started doing 5x5 nuke boxes and put them behind the barn and where they were away from the wind, and I still got them there. And if you want to draw wax, they're the best boxes you can get to draw wax in the spring. They'll make you honey too. I've been last year, I didn't put excluders on all of them, and they were packing away the honey.
Yep.
And then they'll grow. I mean, if you're looking for a hive that, let's say you don't have the wax and you put a nuke box where you want that 10 frame to be when you get done, and you grow that hive, you can grow as high as 4 boxes tall as long as you put a ratchet strap on it, because it's like a skyscraper.
Yeah.
And as long as they get that, draw it out in the bottom in the first box, 80%, 90%, put yourself another box up on top of that. They'll go in there and draw it out again, and they'll just keep drawing and putting eggs and everything. And the bees just get more and more, and you can get 10 frames of, let's say, you can get 20 deep frames, draw it out, and then you can drop them all into a 10 frame double deep. And, all you got to do is just switch everything around, slide that hive off to the side, put the new hive in where the nuke was, and just keep transferring everything over. And there you go. You got a gangbuster hive that's got all drawn wax and brood and everything in it.
Where do you introduce your new plastic at? Location wise?
Just put it above the brood area.
Yeah.
She'll go up there. If it's in the springtime when the flow's coming in, they'll draw wax. You can't get the wax drawn midsummer as well as spring. Or you feed them some 1-to-1 and they'll draw it out for sure. But I've seen them draw wax out, have an egg laid in the middle of it, and they ain't got the darn wax drawn out far enough.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Many
I
times,
see
Charlie.
the egg is sticking up higher than the wax wall on the side, and they're drawing. They're drawing.
They're still drawing.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, I have too on a new hive. Yep, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Hey, Bracken.
That's her way of pushing those bees to draw a comb. Is she'll start dropping eggs on the foundation.
But the thing of it is about a 5 framer is if we're back to that manipulation of the bees.
Yep.
You're sort of forcing them. What it amounts to, if you ever look at your bees in a 10 frame, let's say you put a package in or whatever in a 10 frame single box, they'll cover about 6 frames, and you'll have the bulk of the bees on them 6 frames in the center.
Yep.
And then you got the outer frames with just foundation. And then I call them the lazy bees. They will be off to the sides, over here, off close to the walls, or out on them other frames. They're not doing a thing for you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, let's hang out over here. We don't have to let all them other guys do the work, girls do the work. I'm going to hang out over here.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out.
And I call them the lazy bees. You put that same situation in a 5 frame nuke box. You forced them to all the bees are all packed tight, and they're all forced to focus on 5 frames on both sides, and they'll get the job done.
Yeah, so if we dump a package, we dump it in an 8-frame box with a 2-frame in-frame feeder, so they got 6 frames. And they will build that 6 frames out in about a week and a half. And that queen goes like gangbusters. And then we take those 6 frames and put them in a 10-frame. And then we move those 4 empty frames to the middle and slide the frames out, and they're good.
Yep. So
Can I maybe throw a hand grenade in on a conversation?
yeah, go ahead.
Have you guys ever looked at running 2 queens vertically?
It's done as long as you put a double screen board in it. You can do it. You can overwinter that way.
No, to draw honey.
You're
talking
better
about
off having no queen.
Two queen hive.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 queen
Where you
hive.
have a queen, where you have, it's kind of like the Demaree, where you have the queen with an excluder in the bottom, and then you have another queen with another excluder up top, and they work together to fill. Have you ever done any of that?
I've heard of it being done. The only way I've seen it done is with a double screen bottom board.
Okay.
It's a split hive, is what it is.
Yep.
1 inch is on one side, one's on the other.
Yep.
And then when you go to put them together in the winter, after you've taken all your honey, you have to put a bee escape under it. You cock that bee escape a little bit so those foragers that are coming back can get into the hive. And then at evening, you come out there and you put that bee escape where it's supposed to be, and you strap the hive down.
Oh, you're talking about, get back to the Demaree thing. There was a guy, and he lived in Maryland, over there close to Mount Airy.
Yeah.
And he was explaining, so I think he was giving a demo talk to somebody in Australia about it. I think he was doing a Demaree, and he said he read somebody did this, whereas you had your single brood chamber, your queen excluder, let's say 2 honey supers, and then he put on a bee escape, one of them, the Cirrocell type, and then put his brood up on top.
Yep.
And that way, when all the bees emerged, they all went through down, and then the other could go back up and fill it up with honey, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the only thing I can see about that is what happens if you don't have enough bees upstairs to cover everything. And then is that bee escape going to lessen the draw for the bees to come up into the honey supers? I don't know.
It could, because if you think about this, not logically, but if you think about it in the terms of the brood cycle, when a nurse bee hatches out, it takes care of the young larva, eggs, until it's capped. And at that point, that bee is old enough to move to another job. So as the next nurse bee hatches out, she's taking care of eggs, young larva, until it's capped. And that's how that cycle works. So you always have nurse bees that are hatching out to take care of the new young, and the older nurse bees are moving on to a different job in the hive.
Right. And they'll go down through the bee escape because I think they're leaving the hive.
Yeah. And they go down and they do whatever they do down the bottom, and then they become foragers and they go forage.
Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate that.
Hey guys, I'm going to hop off too.
It's 10:35, guys and gals.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go ahead and shut this chat down for tonight. Appreciate everybody coming in. We had, I think, over 100 people in here tonight. And
still got 79.
we only had 13 likes. I don't know what happened there. But appreciate it. We'll see you next Friday night which will be the 31st. It'll be the last day of January. Hope things will be a little bit warmer by then.
And I'll see
Everybody hit that
Monday
like
night.
button right quick.
Yeah, hit the like button.
Smash the
for me,
like
Mike.
button on the way out.
There's
That was a good
55
catch.
likes. 55, Charlie.
And I'll see everybody Monday night, 8 o'clock on Bees All Day.
59 now. Yeah. And
Yeah,
Joey,
59.
well, who was it? Will. Did you see the no, I guess it was Tom that needed the warm way. Did you see that link or copy it or whatever?
What's this?
I saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I'm good with what I need now.
Okay.
Yep.
No
thank you.
government. No government.
No, okay. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you, Joey. Be careful.
Hey, Bracken, you coming in?
So, Will, are you coming down to the splits class?
Yeah, I'm figuring on it.
Okay.
I'm in there, right? 15th?
Yep.
Yep.
Just hang loose, guys. Let me see if I can update this thing.
So, Joe, I'll send you a video of how to do the traditional.
Okay.
That's something I will be trying to do this year. Hopefully everything will work out better. Things kind of crashed on me in the spring, so that didn't happen. I know that I forget what her name is out in Oklahoma wanted me to do that and all that stuff. And I'll go ahead and try to make a video this Sunday with the clear plastic inner covers and stuff.
Yeah. So we can do a video on the 15th, Charlie. You can do yours and how you do yours, and I'll do mine. That way that they're there for comparison.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream, everybody, and thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Good night, all.
everybody in the video can stay.
See y'all Monday night.